for me, it was an inner conflict, right? So on one hand, I was super shy, but on the other hand, I was also very ambitious. And deep down inside, like I say, like it was like an inner voice or like a higher power that was guiding me. And deep inside, I knew that my shyness is basically limiting my possibilities. If you think that you know everything, this is the quickest way to failure, right? So I wanted to have people around me that can also guide me and lead me to develop myself. All the problems we have could be dating, could be that we like have self-sabotage. I just had a call with someone who struggles with like sports coaches, but never was able to like build strong habits. It all goes back to your mindset. So whatever you struggle with, it's all your mindset.
You start accepting yourself more, which then in turn allows you to love who you are because it's enough. And when you get to that stage, that's a scary stage to get to, because all of a sudden the doors of opportunity just open up. It's almost as if like the world is just like, okay, yeah, you're ready. Like you're ready to level up. Just quickly, just to send the viewers off. One last profound piece of advice that you feel like you can leave the viewers with to sit on and dwell over before they reach out to you. What would it be?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet.
Let's do it.
So yeah, Karim Chelli, my first kind of question for you was something that actually caught me off guard. I don't know if you've ever experienced those belief systems that you have in place and you hear something that kind of goes against them. And when I heard that you were a dating coach, it kind of took me back to my insecure days of being like a teenager in high school and like feeling the need that maybe that was something that I would need later on in order to like converse with people. And when my friends mentioned it, and when I saw when I was doing research on like your site and that, I was like, okay, what does that entail? Like being a dating coach, and how does someone that used to be a dating coach then become this poker mindset coach? And not only that, but have so many people recommend you and kind of swear by your practices. So yeah, I want to kind of like dive into those earlier days of you being a dating coach, and if you could kind of just like explain to us what that entailed, like the earlier parts of your journey.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my journey is, as you said, a little bit crazy, as I would say. Yeah. When I was younger, when I was in my teenage days, I was super shy. I was really, really shy, and for me, it was an inner conflict, right? So on one hand, I was super shy, but on the other hand, I was also very ambitious. And deep down inside, like I say, like it was like an inner voice, or like a higher power that was guiding me. And deep inside, I knew that my shyness is basically limiting my possibilities. All right, because what I did is I took a look at the, let's say, 100 most successful people in the world, and there are not many that are really shy.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so if I want to be really successful, I have to fight my shyness. And for me, fighting my shyness was like the most logic, made the most sense for me. Most logic step for me was to like get good with girls first. All right. Because for me, what I saw was the guys that are good with girls, these are the people who are not shy anymore. So I said, all right.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that's as young boys growing up, that's one of our first obstacles in life, is how to converse and communicate properly. We've all been there in the playground, like wanting to speak to the cute girl, but you're too shy. So it sounds like you, from a very early age, were self-aware enough to reverse engineer the traits that successful people had, at least in your mind, and you kind of broke it down and realized that shyness wasn't one of the traits that any of them carried.
Yes, exactly. And I think I'm so grateful that I was self-aware to figure that out. I was like 16, 17 when I basically discovered this like dating world, right?
Yeah.
And basically I remember I bought my first book about dating. And it was about, like, I can't remember which book it was exactly, but it was about a guy who was also super shy, and like he was a virgin until he was 25. And the book starts by him sitting in his like living room, and like it's his birthday and he's alone. He has no friends, no girlfriend, nothing. And he said, all right, I basically get rid of the idea of ever having kids or having a love life and so on. And he starts the journey, like many things happen, but he starts a journey of like getting good with girls and getting good like with in the dating world. And at the end, like he becomes a multimillionaire and like has his own company and stuff like that. So I was super inspired. And I was like, all right, I think maybe I can do the same. So at the beginning, it was just for me to get rid of my shyness. And I went to seminars. I obviously read some books, watched some videos, bought video courses, and so on. I tried to get as much knowledge as possible for myself until I moved to Vienna. This was also one of the big steps for me. I come from a very small village, right? And for me, moving to Vienna, which is a big place, right? For me, was a very big step. And this was also the moment when I got in touch with the people that organize the speeches, right? Like teaching other people how to get good with girls. And I become very good friends with them. And at some point they offered me to basically hold a speech, right? So I'm like, all right, let's do it. And I was not very fluent, but I had the knowledge because I was super interested in that. And so basically I gave the speech, and after the speech, super funny story, a guy came to me, right? Like he was like nearly twice my age. I was at the beginning of my 20s and he was like end of his 30s, beginning of his 40s.
Okay.
And he came to me, you know, like super stiff, and he's like, excuse me. And I'm like, yes, I liked your speech. I'm like, thank you. And he's like, do you also coach? And for me, it was like in my mind, I'm like, do I coach? I don't know, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, yes, I do, right? I was like, I never coached someone, right? I never coached someone, but like, yes, maybe I do, right? And he's like, okay, so how much do you charge? And it was so funny, right? Like this is a story that I laugh about until these days. So he said, how much do you charge? And I got into my mind and like, my big role model is my mom, right? Like she raised me and I have a really deep connection to her. And I got in my mind and I'm like, okay, how much is my mom earning, right? And she like back in the day, like it was like nearly 10 years ago, like 10 to 12 euros per hour, right? Okay. And I said, if a coach, I want to earn more than my mom. And I said 15 euros per hour, which is nothing, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And of course, he thought that I'm a super big idiot because a good coach never charges 15 euros per hour, right? Yeah. I don't know any good coach who charges like this amount. Yeah, and he's like, deal, instant, right? He's like, deal. And I'm like, all right, deal. And it was so funny because we did obviously one-on-one coaching plus also in person. And we went to like nightclubs and like, you know, like crowded like shopping streets and so on together. And for example, the entry to the nightclub was already 15 euros. So the first hour, I was basically coaching him for free because I had to go into the nightclub as well. Yeah. So it was like you see, right? I had like no business knowledge at this point.
Oh, so the young Karim, like learning the ropes, you know.
Yes, but it was really good to me to learn the basics about coaching and how people work and what they struggle with and so on and so forth. Until I really said, all right, I want to do this on a bigger stage. And then I started to have international clients, people from Europe first, and then also like from overseas, USA, Asia, and so on and so forth. And I also got a mentor at some point because I was like, all right, I'm helping guys to find a girlfriend because this was basically what I promised them, right? So this they know if they work with me, it's not about like having like quick sex or something. I really wanted them to have like a long-lasting relationship. This is what I was standing for. Okay. Right. And I had a mentor because I wanted to also improve myself, because I think as a coach, if you think that you know everything, this is the quickest way to failure, right? Yeah. So I wanted to have people around me that can also guide me and lead me to develop myself. And I had a conversation with my mentor, and this was the start of like the poker journey later on. And we were sitting down and we were like eating dinner, and he said, you know what I thought? And I'm like, what? And he said, I think all your clients have something very important in common. And I'm like, how is that even possible, right? They're from different backgrounds, different countries, different age. Like, it's impossible that all of them have something in common. You know, what are you talking about? And he said, no, hear me out. And I'm like, yes. And he said, I think all your clients at the surface level have a problem with dating. But if you dig deeper, all the problems come from here, from their mindset.
That makes a lot of sense.
And this really like hit me hard, because I thought, I guess he's right. Because if you like continue this thought, all the problems we have could be dating, could be that we like have self-sabotage. I just had a call with someone who struggles with like sports, right? One of my clients, he had like multiple fitness coaches, but never was able to like build strong habits. It all goes back to your mindset. So whatever you struggle with, it's all your mindset. And I was I'm super grateful that I had this conversation with my mentor back in the day, because this got the ball rolling basically, because I said, all right, instead of focusing only on dating, I want to take a deeper look into the personal development side of things and start to teach my clients more from this world. So what happened was I basically took a deeper look into the mindset area, personal development, and so on and so forth. And I was teaching my dating clients less and less of dating stuff and more of personal development stuff. And surprisingly, they got even more success than before. So it's not that they found a girlfriend only. They also like started a business. They got a six-pack. They built some big habits. They got more happiness in their life. And I was like, teaching dating is beautiful and one of my biggest passions. Yeah, but I think I can do even more. And this was the moment. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I must say that was kind of like where I had like this assumption in my head. I was like, okay, so dating, you're coaching people to date. I was picturing something out of a movie where like all of these guys go to these massive seminars, and it's just like the classic American kind of I don't know, jockey seminar where everyone's just like, oh, we're all gonna just become, we're all gonna get laid today. But you took it a lot further than that, and I'm really glad that you kind of did, because there's a surface level to it, which is obviously just like talking to women, but then you kind of realize that it's not just that. There's something deeper here through the help of your mentor, to understand that this is actually something people have in common, regardless of your past experiences and traumas. It all leads up to this mindset of, I'm not enough. Is she gonna, do I earn enough money? Do I look good enough? Am I confident enough in my own body? Am I confident enough in what I do? Like all of those things come down to mindset, and can obviously interfere with like your confidence or the way you converse with people. It's not even just women, right? It's just like people day-to-day general, whether you can close a business deal, whether you can ask for that extra $5,000 salary per year. Like that all comes down to mindset, and goes back to what you were saying about like self-sabotage, self-worth. So that transition then from your first student, if you will, where you're like going around nightclubs and like you're helping him, to then realizing through the help of your own coach that, hey, Karim, these people don't just have girlfriend issues, they have mindset issues. What did that journey look like? And how did that go from being in nightclubs and like telling your students to go and speak to girls, or to approach women, to now being like, hey, maybe try and get 8 hours sleep in, maybe start adding an hour's workout each day to your life, maybe go for a walk every day before you go to work? Like, what did that transition look like?
That's a really good question, actually, because what I do, and I still do this to this very day, is I like to get a lot of new ideas, and I like to test them out on my own first. Okay. So before I teach anything, right? Like sometimes you read a book and you get a good idea and you're like, here, my new student, try it out, this new technique I heard somewhere, right? So I wanted to try it out myself first. And with sleep, for example, like if you know what to do in terms of improving your sleep, it can have a huge impact, not just on your recovery, but also your productivity, for example. Right? And then of other areas of life, you have more willpower and so on and so forth. Yeah. And so I tried it on my own first. I'm like, so improving sleep is an important part of life. Let's teach it. It worked for me. So I think it will work for a lot of other people as well. And this was basically the journey of me trying to like get me or improve myself first, and then seeing what works and what doesn't, and then teaching this to my clients, test it out, see that it works for them. Yeah. And then I said, all right, so here are like, let's say the 10 biggest things that work for my clients. So I continue to teach it to more and more and more. And this was basically the journey. And what happened then is at some point, and this is also the answer to your question, at some point I was teaching so much personal development stuff and so less dating that I said, I'm not a dating coach anymore. I think I'm more like a mindset coach or personal development coach. And this was when I made the transition first to teaching entrepreneurs and professionals, until I ran into Ben CB later on. Maybe you heard the story before. I ran by accident in Ben CB. Ben was...
Sorry, just quickly, but before we jump into to the Ben CB, because obviously that's a major transition of your story, yes. And I want to dive into that.
Yeah.
But can we just close out this subject? So,
yes,
where did this ambition of yours to become the best version of yourself come from? Because you're still relatively young, like, and this was years ago. Where did that desire to test things out on yourself, like, is that just like a natural born trait to be more self-awareness, or did you have coaches or mentors? Was it like a parent thing, or was there a deeper kind of trauma, if you will, or experience where you were like, okay, I need to level up, like I'm not happy with where I am in life right now. I can either sit here and like continue doing the same old mistakes and expecting change, or I can step outside my comfort zone and start learning through failure in order to level up. Like, where did that kind of come from? That like, ambition, if you will.
I think it all starts with me. Like, my parents got divorced very early.
Okay.
All right. So I got raised by my mom. That's why I said before, my mom was always my role model.
Yeah, I love that.
So she raised me, and she's like, until this very day, she's the most important person in my life. And she probably will be forever.
Of course.
All right. Yeah. But the thing is, if you, from her perspective, if you're a single mom and you raise a kid, you have sometimes a hard time dealing with money. Right. I was at some point I was nearly homeless. Right.
Yeah.
That's also part of the journey. Right. I never had a lot of money. Right. I was born in a small village, raised by my mom, never had a lot of money. And the moment when it clicked, when I said, okay, I want to fight my shyness, I think there was also a second click that happened, which is for me that I understood that life is so precious and life is so short. So why do I settle for mediocre results? Because, for example, like, my mom was by far not like the best earner in the country that I was raised in, right? Yeah. She was just like having a normal job in like a normal place, right? Having normal friends. Everything was like mediocre. All right.
Yeah.
But I said, like, and mediocre is fine, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying mediocre is bad or something. But I said, for me, I want to make the most out of life. Cool. And I think you don't get what you want. You get basically like what you deserve in life. So I said, like, for example, this is what I teach my dating clients. If I said always to them, if you're overweight and you have like no social interaction and you think you can date a Victoria's Secret model, right? It's not in line from who you are. So you need to work on yourself first to get the maximum out of life. This is my mantra. This is what I live for.
Yeah.
So I think if I want the best out of life, I need to be the best version of myself.
And by doing that, you also start to develop a very important trait, which I feel like a lot of people go through their entire lives without ever discovering, which is self-love as well. Because when you are doing these things and you're booking the small wins on a daily basis, when it comes to self-improvement, it comes to self-development, you start accepting yourself more, which then in turn allows you to love who you are because it's enough. And when you get to that stage, that's a scary stage to get to, because all of a sudden the doors of opportunity just open up. It's almost as if like the world is just like, okay, yeah, you're ready. Like, you're ready to level up. So it's, it sounds like from what you just explained there, that from a very young age, you put 2 and 2 together, that you weren't living a very abundant life as a child. Your mum was like struggling and scraping by, and you realized that I don't want this for me. So how do I ensure that this isn't what's destined for me? Again, nothing wrong with living that lifestyle if that's what you want. If you're stuck in that comfort zone of mediocrity, if you will, that's okay. Not everyone is looking to alleviate themselves and live the best life possible. But you were aware of that from very early on. That's pretty eye-opening.
And I think from like until this day, this is my biggest gift, right? That I was like, because you said it before, you said you're pretty young, right? I heard this many times that people say like, you're not even 30 and you're teaching all these people. Yeah. But like, I have nearly 10 years of coaching experience because I started so early. And like, this is something that is also for me sometimes really impressive, to be honest.
Yeah.
And of course I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger, right? Like I was far from perfect. But if you start earlier than others, you have a little bit of an advantage.
Well, I think like, if we're completely honest with each other, we're probably still making mistakes now in our day-to-day lives and things that we can improve on. The thing that I want to touch on that I really love, that we'll jump into the Ben CB story, is you wanted to take what benefited your day-to-day life, the things that you figured out that helped you, whether it be diet, gym, sleep, but you immediately had this sense of wanting to share it with others, like this sense of service, if you will, where, like you have that aha moment, this like epiphany of like, wow, getting 8 hours of sleep really helps me to be productive in my work, or it really helps me with my interpersonal relationships. It helps me with my romantic life. I have more energy for my partner or my family. But that wasn't something you wanted to just keep for yourself. You wanted to scale that and share that with the world. Like, where does that come from? Like that wanting to be of service to others. Don't get me wrong. Like, I know you've built a business out of it. That, like, obviously that's not what I'm getting at, but still that desire to share that with other people, where does that kind of come from?
If I'm 100% honest to you, like, I think that's why what I said before, teaching dating to guys is beautiful, right? Helping them to find a girlfriend, and maybe that's a partner for their life. All right, that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
But if at some point it felt like it's just like, it's like teaching just like kids in primary school. Like, that's what I thought, right? Just like teaching them maths in like primary school. And like, if you do it over and over again, it felt like I can do so much more. Yeah. Right? Because like maths in primary school, like you can, like it's like maths is like a big topic, right?
Yeah.
So it's like just teaching them this small thing out of so many was at some point not just really, really fulfilling me. Right. Plus, then, as I said, you get what you deserve and not what you want in life. Then I had this conversation with my mentor, and this was eye-opening, because then I said, all right, my journey, and this is what I figured out, that's my purpose of life, is to become the best version that I can be, see where I can, like, where my full potential is. This is what I do on a daily basis. I really try to get 1% better each day. This is every day, like, my goal, getting 1% better each day.
I've literally got that. That's my top note on my Notion dashboard, is become 1% better of the yesterday's version of you. I love that. That's like my life mantra.
Yeah. So at some point I was like, okay, for me, it's like my journey of life, or like my purpose of life, is to get the best version of me. And yet I'm still teaching dating. You see the gap?
Yeah.
So I said, all right, if I want to do something that I really have this drive for, this fire for, I need to do something that I also do on a daily basis, right? Or I teach something that I also do on a daily basis. And I think this is when you become the best teacher, right? I want to teach what I live, right? And not just like, oh, I'm teaching dating because I'm good at it, right? Yeah. So it's more fulfilling. You're
walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Like,
yes,
you've you've got the certificate to prove it. This isn't something that you've read in a self-help book and you're then regurgitating and like plagiarizing as your own. You're like, hey man, like this is trial and error. Like I've failed at this shit and I'm implementing it on a day-to-day basis. Like, trust me, I know the ropes, which is interesting because I feel like, I mean, you if you just observe, like I personally love going to just people watch sometimes, just sit in a coffee shop in Paris or Barcelona or wherever it is around the world. And you'll just watch people and people are just like so stuck in their day-to-day lives. They're not observing what's going on around them because they're in their comfort bubbles. And I feel like with what you do, you must get quite a lot of backlash initially because it could almost come across as like, hey, I know best. Trust me. Like, how do you build that trust with people to not kind of react from an egotistical point of view, like as if to say, wait, hang on, who are you? Like, where did you start like learning how to build that trust with your clients and just say, hey, if you give me 30 days or 60 days or whatever it is, 100% effort on your part, and you follow what I'm telling you to do, you will see drastic improvements. Like where did that start? And what challenges did you have through that journey as well? Because I can kind of imagine there was probably a bit of backlash with that.
I think the backlash, like it's not just me who has that. I think like every other poker mindset coach or mindset coach in general probably will face that at some point.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a big misconception I see in the poker world, that like a lot of people think like mindset work, that's bullshit. That's just some voodoo stuff, you know? Yeah. And then like if they watch videos of other poker mindset coaches, they just like meditate. Right. And then they think like, oh, like I can meditate on my own. I don't need a mindset coach for meditation. Right. But this is the beautiful thing. Mindset work is so much more. And I think the reason why people decide to work with me is because I focus on the three most important area. And if I tell them that those three areas, they figure out that at least one area is there to be improved, minimum one.
Yeah.
And then the truth is usually that we can improve in all three areas. That's the secret, right?
Yeah.
Because it's also for me, right? There's always more improvement. This improvement thing or personal development journey is a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
And we say it's lifelong learning. It's not that, same with the gym, right? You can always have more muscles or be fitter or have more endurance or whatever, right? It's not that just like, I have a big biceps and that's all, right? It can always be better.
Forget to train leg day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is the following. The three areas are the classical mindset stuff that you see everywhere, right? Like this is meditation, of course, but there's more to it, like having structure, discipline, right? Having clear goals, knowing how to stay calm in like downswings, for example, but also how to deal with upswings, right? One client said to me, when I'm in an upswing, I feel like a poker god. Yeah. So if you feel like that, that's also very dangerous. Right. But also dealing with self-doubt, like self-love as well. You mentioned that before. Fear, right? This is the first topic only. That's the mindset topic. Yeah. The second topic, I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about. That's sport psychology, which is performance, performance work, right? I teach my clients. It sounds a little bit complicated, but if you know what to do, it's very simple. Yeah. How to use emotional triggers, right? I don't drink alcohol, but usually like if you see me out like on a party, I'm having the most fun. Yeah. Because I'm using emotional triggers like this, and it brings me into like a high performing state or like a state where I have a lot of fun, right? So I teach the same to my clients. So they're able like this to play their A game, right? Maybe not always, but a lot of times they can play their A game consistently. Right. And if you watch some testimonials, you also hear that they say this the most, right? Yeah. I'm able to play my A game, right? So this is the second topic. And then the third topic is optimization. This is like sleep, for example. We talked about this a little bit, but also nutrition, exercise, and also relationships. They also have an impact, right? If you think that you can be the best poker player in the world, being completely isolated, having no one to talk to, no friends, no social interactions, that's also something that will hold you back.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. Sorry, man. I just wanted to cut you off. Yeah, so there's quite a few things I want to unpack from there. So the fear part, so being fearful, are we talking fear of failure, or is it fear of their potential? Are your clients scared of becoming really good? Does that make sense?
I think fear in everything, because you cannot just say like, is it this fear or that fear? I think fear is a big topic, and there are many other there are many fears, right? Many other than, like, it could be the two you mentioned, but it could also be other fears, like, for example, fear in late stages of a tournament, but also fear of like being, as you said, like being successful, or like comparing yourself with others. I would also count this into a fear.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us are guilty of that, especially early on in their poker careers. You look at the unicorns of the industry, your Fedor Holtz's 23-year-old insane run in 2016, or whoever it is. You look at those guys, and it's very easy to immediately do yourself a disservice, if you will, where because you don't have the same results, you're not worthy. Like, you are not worthy of playing poker, or you are. Something that I've worked on a lot myself in recent years has been like the language that I use for myself, my internal monologue and dialogue, because I would realize that I would lose a pot and it would be like, Henry, you're such an effing idiot, and straight away, like that belief system kicks in that, okay, you're not enough, you're not good enough to be playing in these games. So I mean, I feel like I could plug or I could pick your mind about all of the teachings, but I'll save that for the students at the end of the day, because like that's what you offer.
Yes.
That's your service. But to jump into the third stage, so you mentioned like the self-doubt and the fear and like the belief systems, but then the third stage, if I'm not mistaken, was their like routine, their sleep, their relationships.
Yes, optimization. Yeah. So the life around poker, basically.
Could you dive into that a little bit deeper as to like what you mean by optimization outside and away from the poker tables?
Yes. So I think sleep is very obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nutrition is also very obvious.
Yeah.
Exercise, I think that's also like obvious, right? Like doing sports. I have so many like poker players that they don't do any kind of sport. Yeah. Or when I ask them, like they're like, oh, sometimes I run. And then I say, when was the last time you ran? Right. And they're like, 5 months ago. I'm like, right.
Yeah, sometimes.
So, or with the sleep, I will never forget this. I had one student who was very, very young, 21, from the UK. And he came in the call and he said, I have sleep problems. Like he slept basically 3 hours. Then he woke up, he played poker for 2 hours. Then he slept again 2 hours. Then he played for 5 hours. Then he slept for 3 hours, like this. So like he didn't even know if it's day or night. It was just like basically like falling asleep playing like this. All right.
Mm.
And then I was looking in his background and he didn't even have like curtains or something. So I said, like, you have to have, like, you start with the basics, buy some curtains first. Yeah. And then let's talk about the rhythm, like when you want to sleep, when the games, like this.
Yeah.
And this has a big impact. Just imagine, like, he was eating a lot of McDonald's and didn't even have curtains or like a good sleep rhythm.
Yeah.
These two things alone probably made him so much money. Right. So sometimes it's very simple or very obvious, the solution. Sometimes it can be more difficult.
Well,
you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say obvious to an experienced coach like yourself, whereas like for us, when you are 19, 20, 21, you still haven't got much life experience, but you're really good at poker and you don't really know how to handle the rest of it outside of, check raising turns at a certain frequency.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And the last part is relationships, right? Could be friendships, right? Building friendships, building connections. A lot of poker play. That's why Ben said, like, I'm the perfect match for a lot of poker players because poker is a very isolated game.
It is. Yeah.
And me coming in with the experience of a dating coach, it's for a lot of people a very good match, right? It's not just like having them to find a girlfriend, but also like friendships, building deep connections with other people.
Mm.
right? This is also something that is very important for our own development and also the peace of mind.
So you're looking after Maslow's hierarchy of needs from the bottom all the way to the top in order to allow your students, students, I guess, to perform at their highest performance on a more consistent basis by helping them look after the foundations and their day-to-day life, basically.
Yes. I mean, there's more to it, but yes, to keep it simple, yes.
So Ben CB, so obviously you had nothing to do with poker. You were a dating coach. That's how you started out.
And then
you then
then a business coach.
Exactly. Yeah. You then realized that, hey, this stuff that I'm doing in my day-to-day life, gym, nutrition, sleep, relationships, I want to teach that to more people. So you started coaching that as well in order to help your clients. But then you met a very well-known crusher, Mr. Ben CB, who basically changed your life or changed the trajectory of the road that you were on. You ended up coming down this poker mindset coaching life. Yeah. So how does Ben come into the picture? What happened there? How do you just become good friends with Ben CB?
So as I said, I was like teaching business people, right? So I was working with entrepreneurs, people that have 0 to 10, basically employees, and then also pilots, managers, doctors, people like that, right? And I was teaching them dealing with stress, basically improving the mindset, performance work. We talked like stress, building habits, and so on and so forth, right? So basically the things that I just said, the 3 topics, but just like tailor-made for business people, right?
Yeah.
And I also did public speaking because this is something I learned on in a very early age. So I continued to doing it. And after my speech, a guy came to me, right? He was wearing a hoodie, and I'm like, business event, you don't wear a hoodie, you know, who is that guy? And he's like, hey man, I like your aura. Do you mind like hanging out? And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, like we had a nice conversation. We basically like exchanged numbers. And then he said, you know what? Actually, like, is it okay if I bring my friend? And I'm like, all right. So we basically, the 3 of us, we're in a cab driving to a restaurant. And I'm like, by the way, guys, like both in hoodie, right? I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, which kind of business do you have? We just met on a business event, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we tell you later, right?
Wow.
Let's talk about this later. And I'm like, okay, you know, a little bit strange. And then we go into the restaurant and we had a really good conversation for 2 hours or something. And then after 2 hours, I'm like, guys, I still don't know what you do for a living. Yeah? Tell me what's going on here, right? Is it something illegal or what's going on?
Of course, yeah.
And I remember they looked at each other and then they looked at me and they said, yeah, so we're professional poker players.
Okay.
And this was the first time in my life that I heard that.
Right.
I'm a professional poker player, what's that? And I thought the first thought I had was like they go into the casino, they put everything on red or black and hope to like win. That's my first thought, right?
Yeah, classic.
And I'm like, hey, what's that? You know? And they're like, it's a little bit hard to explain. Come over tomorrow and we'll show you. Okay, a little bit weird, but all right.
Yeah.
They send me the address and it's one of the best places where you can live in Vienna.
Right.
And they're like, okay, if you live there, okay, that's some serious stuff.
Yeah.
So I went over and they say, oh, like it's a loft. You have to go to the highest floor. And I'm like, okay, this area, loft. So basically I went to the loft and like their apartment was beautiful. It's until this very day, one of the most impressive apartments I've ever saw in my life. And then I was sitting down and I got curious now. Right? Like, okay, like if you can afford this place, like teach me how is this game? How does this game work? And I was sitting down with Ben CB and like also another high stakes poker player. And these 2 people were teaching me poker. And just imagine me never played poker before playing with these like crushers, you know? So that was a special experience itself. But I also through having like good mentors like Ben and this other guy, I became very good at poker very fast. But I still had my coaching business.
That's like kicking a football for the first time with Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi and like Ronaldo's teaching you how to take a penalty for the like that's insane, dude.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're with the absolute elite, like the higher
Yeah.
echelons of the poker community. Okay,
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah, and I got a lot of support from Ben and basically his flatmate. And like whenever I had a question, they were there for me, explaining me things. And yeah, if you have like people guiding you, you know, like or like high level players guiding you, you will be successful very fast.
Yeah.
And at some point, I had a big problem because I still had my coaching business, but I also became very good at poker. And I had a problem because I knew that I cannot become the best coach when I want to become a high stakes poker player.
Right.
But I also cannot become a high stakes poker player if I still have my coaching business running. Both is like improving and getting better. And I had to make a decision. I didn't want to like quit the coaching business because I love coaching. It's my biggest passion.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want to quit poker because I love poker. It's a beautiful game. And yeah, it's basically also one of my biggest passion that I have.
Yeah.
So I had a problem. And then I went to Ben and I said, what should I do? I have to make a decision. One of these two I have to let go. And he smiled at me and he said, you don't have to let go or like make a decision. Why don't you just combine these two and become a poker mindset coach? And I'm like, that's it.
You're just like, wow.
Yeah.
The Ben CD with the alpha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, this is basically how I went from being a dating coach to being a poker mindset coach.
So at that time where you met Ben, do you mind me asking, like, what kind of time frame are we working with here? So you meet Ben and then you get to this crossroad where you're like, okay, I physically cannot pursue both. I cannot master both.
Yeah.
Dating coach or professional poker player. I need to go all in on one. How long was that from meeting Ben to then having to come to that decision?
1.5 years, 2 years, something like that.
So during that time, during that 1.5, 2 years, you are literally getting coached by one of the best poker players in the world.
I mean, not coached, right? Just to be fair, I didn't get coaching from Ben or something. But okay, but of course, when I had a question, yes, when I had a question, he was there, right? It was more friendship, right?
Yeah. Which is
so it was not that like he's my coach. Yeah, also the other way around, right? Like you could also say, why don't you coach Ben, right? We're just good friends.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And when he needs something, like I can help him out. And when I need something, he helps me out. Right. So it's like a friendship, and it's not that someone is like coaching the other person or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's for me personally, one of the most beautiful and beneficial relationships you can have with your circle of those that are close to you, that help alleviate each other and reach the next level together as a team. You celebrate his wins, he celebrates your wins, kind of thing.
Exactly.
That's the best environment to be in. And it's something that poker players have seemingly become more and more aware of, especially in recent years. I don't know whether it's through the introduction of social media, just, everyone now has access to Instagram, Twitter, Discord, Skype, but it's something that a lot of the high stakes community used to have, but the general public didn't know as well. So there was Skype groups, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or like the high stakes groups. It was very tough to get into. It was very tightly knitted. The information was so valuable that not many people would share it. So poker looked like an individual sport, an individual journey, whereas now people are realizing that in order to get to the top of the game, you need to have a solid crew around you. You need to have people that you can be vulnerable with. You can discuss hand histories with. You can discuss an emotional breakdown that you had in a certain spot where you felt entitlement or whatever it was. People are slowly starting to realize that, and people are looking to people like yourself, like the mindset coaching, where 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there was this kind of taboo, if you will, around getting a mindset mentor, because as with, like, at least in my world, the older generation in my family, like my dad and my uncles, talking about feelings and talking about your mindset, like, no, you get back to work, like we're not here to be emotional. Like you go to bed and you wake up the next day and you continue plugging away. So more and more people are becoming more open to what you do. And I feel like you have gotten in pretty early, if you will. Like, I don't know, how excited are you for the future and what you're doing? Because now there are talks on podcasts. You do have your social media platform. People are, through word of mouth, saying, hey, Karim Chelli's actually helped me. Like, I'm actually getting results by discussing these things with him and being open and being vulnerable. Where do you see your journey going from here over the next like couple of years, given that it's now becoming more and more accepted that, hey, sure, when you're in a poker hand, it's just you against the world. Nobody can help you make that decision. But away from the table, you need to have a team in place if you want to become one of the elite players.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still, and this is something that I like, I don't know, born traits, if you will, right? I was always ambitious. I said this in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very, very, very ambitious.
Okay.
I think because I started so early, I think I can become as big as Elliot, maybe even bigger, right? I know for some people, if they see me the first time, they're like, who is that guy talking about, Elliot, like this? But I really want that, right? I'm really giving everything for my clients. I'm really trying to show the world that, first of all, mindset work is extremely important for every poker player who really wants to make it to a high level. And second of all, if you have someone that guides you along the way, you can have amazing results. And I think this should bring me to a very special spot in the future, I think, right? Where the journey will be, I don't know, but this is what I'm striving for. I want to be market leader, right? This is my dream. And then also something that Elliot does that I find really interesting and something I like a lot is he works with athletes, like sports people, like fighters. I'm a big fan. I also did MMA myself.
Okay.
And I think, like, if you would ask me where I see myself in 10, 20 years, like being the number one guy in like poker mindset world, plus also working with like boxers or MMA fighters, I think that's fantastic. That's also one of my dreams.
Man, life's too short to not have big dreams, and not get after them. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I mean, I think like Elliot, similarly to you, I have personal friends that have worked with you that are, in my mind, the future crushers of the game. They're just still relatively new to the game. They're part of the younger generation. Whereas I know Elliot works with like Galfond, and he's worked with some like, big names in the past that are part of the previous generation. They're still around, don't get me wrong. They're still competing at the highest level, but they were around 15 years before I was around. So it wouldn't surprise me, as your clients rise amongst the ranks, if you will, as their poker game improves and they move up, that you kind of go hand in hand with them. That's kind of like a common thing, right? You see, like as they get better, you get better, and more people know about you. But transitioning into boxing and UFC, I could certainly see that being a thing, man. Why not? Sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really, really cool, right? Working with business people, then poker players, then fighters, then I've seen it all.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to wrap it up in a kind of putting you on the spot a little bit. I hope you don't mind, by mentioning something that I feel like I've struggled with, and to kind of hear your response to it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to come up with something that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Hopefully a lot of the listeners at home can relate to. And that is entitlement at the poker table and self-sabotage at the poker table. So one of the biggest leaks in my game that I've discovered when I'm playing live cash is I believe in my mind that I deserve to win a hand. I've become attached to the result of winning a hand. Say, for example, I've got 85%, 90% equity, whatever it is, but then my opponent wins the hand. And immediately, my entitlement and self-entitlement comes through straight away. I start V-pipping 15% higher. I start playing more aggressively. And my respect for my opponents is just gone. So I wanted to ask you, as the advisor coach, and I'm sure a lot of people at home can relate to this kind of entitlement and self-sabotage, where they start spewing, they start playing way too aggressively, they start calling down lightly. What would be one of your key takeaways from that entitlement? Where does that come from, and how can the people at home, and how can I work on that?
So first of all, it would be a big lie to say I can solve self-sabotage or something within 10 minutes, right?
No, I got
just,
you, man.
Just to clear the expectations here, right?
To clarify that, I'm listening. I'm not expecting the next 5 minutes to be like, wow, Karim has solved all of my problems. No, you're good, man.
Yeah. But what I can tell you is we have two big ways to solve this. The first one is to go all the way back to your childhood and say, where did this start? It could be that, just as an example, I had one client that he was like kindergarten and someone like stole something from him, like a card, a Pokemon card or something. And he was like, oh, like it's mine. And then he was like, he felt entitled to get like his cards as well. Right. And like sometimes you have this entitlement being created very early on in your childhood. So you want to go back, figure out where is this entitlement coming from my childhood. And then that could be one way of solving it. All right. The way that I do it with my clients is sometimes by just talking about it, we figure out where it's coming from. If not, what I do is I bring them into like a trance state, right? Where they're super relaxed, where they like have their eyes closed and so on and so forth. And then I basically guide them all the way back in their childhood and figure out, okay, when was the first time you had the same feeling of entitlement that you feel on the poker table? And sometimes it takes a while, but sometimes we like, bam, that's it. That's the one thing. Yeah, that's the trigger. And then it's basically like a necklace, right? If with some, let's say a necklace with some, how should I say, with some jewelry on, right?
Okay.
If you're able to get rid of the first part of the necklace, all the jewelry falls down, and then you just have the pure necklace. And this is basically the way this works. So that's the first option, right? The second option, if it's not so big, some people say, oh, self-sabotage, and like they say like, oh, it's my childhood drama, but actually it's just a form of tilt. It could also be just a form of tilt, a very simple form.
Yeah.
So what you experience is like that you get like more aggressive, could also be a form of revenge tilt, right? That you say like, oh, now I'm fighting back, and like you have more VPIP. So sometimes it's very simple, and we just have to talk about tilt and how to solve tilt. We don't even have to like go all the way back to your childhood, like do the necklace thing and blah, blah, right? Sometimes it's just like talking about tilt, talking about strategies, maybe self-talk could be here a topic.
Taking a 10-minute
emotional
walk.
Control. Yeah, for example, but like emotional control or something, or a performance topic. And that's also sometimes the solution. So that's why I said it would be a big misconception to think I can solve it within 10 minutes. We really have to figure out how big of an issue is that? And is it just like the entitlement? Is it in the childhood? Is it just tilt? Or is it maybe coming from somewhere else? Maybe just as an example, maybe you only have this when you have bad sleep.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be a complete different issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, you've already got my mind racing. Yeah, like it's very, very eye-opening. And I personally love talking about stuff like this. I love what you're doing within the community. It's kind of scary because with people like you around, the opponents are going to get very tough over the next few years. You know, like you're in a 8-handed tournament and 6 guys have been deep in the mindset lab. Like, you know, they're going to be tough to crack. Right? You're going to make poker tougher, but it's going to be sure the competition is going to get tougher, but you are making the world a better place, my friend. You really are. Helping people become the best version of themselves, regardless whether it's poker or whether it is just getting 8 hours of sleep, having closer relationships with friends, family, hitting the gym, and hitting their micro goals on a daily basis, which then in turn helps them hit their macro goals long term, I think is a very selfless thing. It's a very selfless journey that you seem to be on as well. Karim Chelli, where can people find you social media wise? Like, what are you doing? YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok? Where can people find you at the moment?
The fastest way to get in touch with me is either over my website. So it's basically my name. You see it here, karimchelli.com.
I'll make sure I include it in the description box.
Yes. For sure. Yeah. Or option number 2, Instagram, right? So if someone has a question, some of the topics we talked about, or like completely different questions, I read every message that I get on Instagram, and I also reply to every message. Yeah, if the message makes sense, right?
Be careful, man. You're opening up a can of worms there.
Yeah, I know, right? But at least I read every message. That's what I can say. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. So Instagram, just your Karim Chelli. If people Google you, they're going to find you, and you're going to get some weird questions coming through now. What's the meaning of life?
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic stuff, man. Well, listen, I've personally had an absolute blast. And I honestly wish we could go a bit longer. I feel like we need to set a date, maybe 1 year from now, to run it back. Do a 2.0 version where we can sit down for a bit longer than an hour. We're coming up to an hour now.
Yes.
But hour and a half is a sweet spot, especially for viewer retention, the people at home. You know all about that. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to clip some of this as well, get out to the world, because I feel like a lot of people can benefit from it. Just quickly, just to send the viewers off, one last profound piece of advice that you feel like you can leave the viewers with to sit on and dwell over before they reach out to you, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say, like, no matter which age you are, I want to say, like, everything is possible if you put the effort in. Don't limit yourself. A lot of people, they say like, oh, like I'm not worth this amount of money, or like I'm not deserving to be the best poker player or whatever. Everything in life is possible. There are no limits. The only limits we make is our mindset, right?
Karim Chelli, thank you so much, my man. Absolutely pleasure talking with you for the last hour or so. And yeah, boom, we got it. We did it. Fantastic stuff, man.